Alright, hello and welcome back to yet another video. This is your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite hacker and system attacker. This is going to be another video that we're going to do inside the tryhackme pathway for SOC level 1, which is the security analyst role, security operations center. And we have done so far the WireShark's basics, the WireShark packet operations, and this is going to be a third segment for WireShark traffic analysis. We've also done all of these other videos as well, but I'm not going to link them inside the description for this video. I'm just going to link the stuff that we've done for WireShark, but feel free to roam around the channel and try to find whatever video applies to you. We've already done, I think we're pushing on 40 videos, 40 uploads so far, and I'm just gonna keep trucking away, just trying to find a consistent flow of uploads for you guys. If you like the content of the video, if you find any value in it, or if you just wanna show appreciation, I invite you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out. And if you leave a comment, if you like, it helps with the algorithm, so it would mean a lot to me. If you could actually go ahead and do that. No pressure or anything like that, but it is very helpful, and it helps us getting more exposure on these videos. So without further ado, let's jump into the introduction of the room. Okay, so in this room we're going to cover techniques and key points for traffic analysis with WireShark to try to detect suspicious activities. We've already done the basics video, we've already done the packet operations video, and we covered essentially all of the basics for WireShark. We covered how to find packets with display filters and how to find content within packets with advanced filters. And now we're going to look at how to find trends in traffic analysis to try to detect suspicious activities. So we're going a little bit of a higher view. Instead of looking at individual packets, we're going to try to put traffic together to try to see what exactly is going on and try to detect malicious or suspicious activity. The room does require a virtual machine, which I've already started, and this is a subscriber only room, so it does require subscription, but you can always just download WireShark on your own machine and capture some traffic on your own machine and essentially do the same thing that we're doing in this exercise, just so you can kind of get the flow of how WireShark works and everything like that. Nmap scans are essentially a reconnaissance technique. So Nmap is literally the industry standard for mapping networks, as the name applies. It's network mapper, and it's literally one of the most used scanner tools. I use it all the time. You use it pretty much for the first step of any pen testing exercise or cybersecurity exercise, just to get enumeration on a network, try to find vulnerabilities. There's a lot of great things that goes inside of Nmap and what it can do for you. But specifically, there are three very commonly used scans in Nmap. There is the TCP Connect, SYN scan, and UDP scans. These things happen all the time. It's kind of like the first level, the first step of scanning in Nmap. And it's basically essential to understand when there's a scan happening on a network. So when something happens and somebody's trying to map your network, it's important to understand what that traffic looks like so that you can find it. And TCP flags have either the global search, that would be either TCP or UDP. Then you have only the SYN flag, which looks like this. So TCP flags equal 2. And then the SYN flag is set, and the rest of the bits aren't that important, I guess. So it'll be TCP flags SYN equals 1. Then only the acknowledgement flag and only the ACK flag is set. Then you have only SYN ACK flags, that looks like this, and then SYN and ACK flags are set. The rest of the bits are not important, so it would say this, and this would be the query that you would be searching for. Only RST, which is reset, only reset flag would be this, and then reset flag is set, look like that. RST and ACK flags equals like this, and then if they're set, it equals like that. So you can kind of see at least a pattern of combining certain things, and then these individual ones you can actually even find in the, there's a, I forget the technical name for it, I'm sure we're going to use it, but there's a tool inside of the analyze menu for WireShark that helps you create these queries, and you can literally go down the list of all the different types of queries that are available, and then you find TCP, and then under that you would find TCP flags, and then you could say TCP flags reset, and then it would give you all the different options that it is set, it's not set, so on and so forth. And then once you choose the options that you want, it'll create the query for you, and then it pastes it into the search field for you. So you don't necessarily have to know how to do these things, but you do need to understand what you're looking for. You need to have a good idea of what you're looking for, and then from there you can go ahead and create your queries. And so the final one is only the fin flag is set, and then fin flag is set, the rest of the bits aren't that important, so on and so forth. So TCP connect scans, in a nutshell, it relies on a three-way handshake, so it needs to be a completed TCP handshake, usually conducted with ST command on Nmap, usually by non-privileged users. So it's actually the only option for a non-root user. If you're trying to do a SYN scan, it forces you to use the root user. Usually has a window size larger than 1024 bytes, as the request expects some data due to the nature of the protocol. The open TCP port would be SYN, SYN acknowledge, and acknowledge. So this is what the full handshake looks like. We send a SYN packet, it sends back SYN acknowledge, and then you send an acknowledge packet. Open TCP port, you send the SYN packet, it sends back acknowledge, SYN acknowledge, and then you send back acknowledge, and then it sends a reset acknowledge. And then close TCP port, it sends a SYN packet, it sends only a reset acknowledge, and then we don't complete the rest of the handshake. So below, we actually get to see what that kind of looks like. So this is the full TCP port actually connected. So it sends a SYN packet right here. It sends the SYN packet, then the system responds with SYN acknowledge, and then we send an acknowledgement packet, and then even a reset acknowledgement packet has been sent, which means that we're actually looking for port 22, and port 22 has responded as being opened. And so it came from this port to 22, 22 responded to us, and then we responded back to it, and we sent a reset packet. And that's the full handshake, including the port, the open port, right? Then you have closed port. So you send the SYN acknowledgement, and it responds with reset acknowledgement, or not SYN acknowledgement, my bad. You send a SYN packet, and it responds with a reset acknowledgement, meaning that it's not open, it's closed, so you don't get anything. When you run Nmap, by the way, it doesn't show you the closed ports. It typically only shows the open ports, and it'll say, you know, out of the 65,000 scanned, or out of the top 1,000 scanned, only these were the open ones. Everything else was either filtered or closed. That's a whole different room. We have 3 videos dedicated to Nmap that you can also go check out. TCP flags SYN equals 1, TCP flags ACK equals 0, and TCP window size is greater than 1024. That's the full query that we're seeing over here. And we might just be able to kind of look at this like this. And so it just shows you, right? So the SYN flag has been set, and you actually get it, SYN, 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 SYN. So these are all of the SYN flags that come in. And I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory at this point. Then you have the SYN scan. So a SYN scan is only done by privileged users, meaning you need admin or sudo privileges. They have less than 1024 bytes. So it's not, as the request is not finished, and it doesn't expect to receive any kind of a data. And so if you have an open TCP port, we send the SYN, it responds with SYN acknowledge, and then we send the reset. If it's closed, SYN, and it sends a reset acknowledgement. And so SYN right here looks like this. So you basically send the SYN, and then it responds SYN acknowledge, and then immediately we send a reset, and it closes it. Same thing with a closed port. It's very similar to a closed port on TCP, which is SYN, reset acknowledge, just like that. Then you have the query that if you wanted to make sure that the SYN packet is set, acknowledgement is not set, and window size is less than or equal to 1024. This is what the query looks like, and then you would get the results. And finally, we have UDP scans. So the UDP packet gets sent out, and some kind of a ping type 3 or code 3 message saying destination unreachable or port is not unreachable. And that's basically all you get when you have a UDP closed port. When you have an open port, all we do is we just send a UDP packet, and then it'll respond as such, whether if something is open or if it's not. If it's closed, it just doesn't show up. If it's filtered or might possibly be open or is not closed, it'll give us something in return. So closed port number 69 and open port number 68 UDP ports. So you have closed port number 69, sent back destination unreachable. Closed port or open port number 68 didn't send anything back. So it's just, as long as it doesn't respond with a ping that says it's not unreachable, or it's unreachable, excuse me, as long as it doesn't respond with a ping that says it's unreachable, we can assume that it's open. And the above image opens that closed port returns an error packet. No further information is provided. So how can an analyst decide whether this error message belongs? The ICMP error message uses the original request as encapsulated data to show the source reason of the packet. Once you expand the ICMP section in the packet details, you will see the encapsulated data and the original request. So that's the data that we sent. If we clicked on this thing and we tried to open it, it would show you under the IPv4, and then it says under the ICMP section. So the ICMP section of IPv4, it would be, where is that? I see, my apologies. So this is the actual packet that we're looking at right here, and this is the results of the packet. And then when you click on the next one, which is this thing, the ICMP, when you click on that, it would actually show you the details of the packet, including where it was from and what the original source destination ports were. So you can connect it back to what was happening. And it also shows you obviously the source and destination IP addresses. We can be tracked back to these two right here. So it shows you at least the IP addresses and the ports that were trying to be reached. At least you can track it back accordingly so that you can see which one it belongs to. The given filter shows UDP scans in a capture file. So you do this filter, ICMP type 3 and ICMP code equals 3, and you include both of them together, and it goes like so. It actually shows you the results of it, and it says destination unreachable, port unreachable, unreachable, excuse me. And the ICMP type equals 3, I believe, is declaring UDP, and code equals 3 is the destination unreachable type that comes back. So let's answer some of these questions. It says, use the desktop Nmap exercise file that's in the machine. What is the total number of TCP connect scans? And then which type is used to scan TCP port 80? And then it says how many UDP closed ports messages are there, and which UDP port in the 55 to 70 port range is open. So we're going to open up our VM, our virtual machine, and then from there we're going to try to answer some of these questions. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open these questions on a separate page in a separate monitor, and then we're just going to work out of the VM until we have all the questions answered, and then we'll come back to the exercise and go through the rest of the tasks. So let's do show split view so that we can actually see the machine. It should be open by now, and once we have that, we will open this up in full screen because it's a little bit easier, and from here we can actually run through the question. So the first one was open it and see how many TCP connect scans are there. Okay, here we go. We have the packet exercise PCAP actually opened. So we're going to expand on this a little bit. And now we're going to create our filter, our query, that only looks for TCP connect scans. Okay, so for this one, I actually shrunk the window back down so I can show you the answer at the bottom right here. But for this one, we used exactly the filter that they, or the query that they provided us, and I just copy pasted it in here. TCP flag sent equals 1, flags acknowledged equals 0, and TCP window size is greater than 1024. And so what that looks like on the results is that it says out of the 6544 packets, we have 1,000 that's been displayed. And so the answer is 1,000. And the next question is, which scan type is used to scan the TCP port 80? And the answer to that is actually TCP connect. We didn't need to run any kind of queries inside our exercise file here, but a TCP connect scan will tell us if TCP port 80 is open, and then of course we would need to filter for the port number, and it would show us that way. So the next one is, how many UDP closed port messages are there? So that's what we're going to filter for, and we already should have that over here as well. So how many UDP closed port messages are there? And it's going to be this little filter right here. There we go, that's the filter. ICMP type equals 3, ICMP code equals 3, and there we have it. And now if we just come down here, we will see our displayed results. So 1083 should be the answer. And so let's type that in and see if that is correct. And that is indeed correct. And so finally, which UDP port in the 55 to 70 port range is open? Okay, the filter for this one is udp.port in this range right here. And this was in the packet analysis video that we did for WireShark, so you're more than welcome to go check that out. But this is basically a search packet search type that we could do, where we can search for UDP ports, and then so UDP port inside of this range, and you put it inside the little squiggly brackets, and it'll tell you what it is. And so when you put the 2 dots in the middle, it says between 55 to 70. If there were no 2 dots and you just did 55 and 70, it would only look for those 2 specific numbers. So we want to look at everything in between. And the hint for the question says that, you know, a lot of this stuff is done manually. So what we want to do is we want to find something visually by kind of scanning the results ourselves to try to see which one is done manually, and so, or which one is open. So if we look at, you know, 67 from 3530, if we look at this destination unreachable message, and then we open this little thing up, and it'll show us that, or sorry, it's the ICMP protocol part. So we go here and it says from this one to this one, and then 350 to 67. That's what this belongs to, is this one. And then this next one, if we look at it, it'll say destination port 69, which is, that's what that belongs to. And then the rest of these, there was no error message attached to it, and the port is 68. So the answer most likely is going to be port number 68. So if we type that in, and that is indeed the answer. So just like that, we got our first 4 questions answered. I'm going to shrink that down. And so I'm just going to refresh this just so you can kind of see that this whole thing did indeed work. We're going to go back to the Nmap Scan section, and right at the bottom right here, we have all of our questions. So 1000, TCP Connect, 1083, and 68 were our responses. So now moving on to ARP poisoning and man-in-the-middle attacks. So the ARP protocol, or Address Resolution Protocol, is responsible for allowing devices to identify themselves on a network. ARP typically works with MAC addresses, and it's with switches, and that's kind of a networking. We don't need to go too deep into that. But ARP spoofing, or man-in-the-middle attacks, is the type of attack that involves jamming or manipulating the network by sending malicious packets to the default gateway. The ultimate aim is to manipulate the IP to MAC address table and sniff the traffic of the target host. So there are a variety of tools available to conduct ARP attacks. However, the mindset of the attacker is static, meaning it's the same. So it's easy to detect such an attack by knowing the ARP protocol workflow and WireShark skills. So ARP analysis in a nutshell works on the local network because it's, again, MAC address based. And so if it's MAC address based, they can only work on the local network. So you can't really find, I mean, you can, but we're not gonna go too deep into that. So it's on the local network, enables the communication between MAC addresses. It is not a secure protocol, and it's not a routable protocol, meaning it doesn't go through the router. It doesn't have an authentication function, and common patterns are request and response, announcement, and gratuitous packets. So 4 types of packets. And so the global search is ARP. So you just do ARP and it'll show you everything that has to do with ARP. And then you have ARP options. So opcode 1 is ARP requests, which is this. Opcode 2 is ARP responses. And then you have ARP scanning, which can be a variety of different things. So you do ARP destination, hardware MAC is everything that's this, and I'm guessing it's just going to search for a bunch of zeros. And then ARP duplicate address detected or ARP duplicate address frame, that could just be one filter. And then you have ARP and ARP code equals 1 inside these double parentheses that you notice, and which is the same thing as doing lowercase and, like AND typed out. And then this as the other side where it says ARP source hardware MAC equals the target MAC address, right? So these are a few different scenarios. And so this one specifically is ARP scanning. This one is trying to search for possible ARP poisoning. And then this one is trying to search for ARP flooding from detection, possible ARP flooding from detection. So this is the ARP request. So it says who has such and such, tell that person, who has this IP, tell that IP, basically, as that's what an ARP request is. But it's searching for, if you notice here, the source MAC address, and it's going to FFFF, which means it's a broadcast. It's being sent to everybody on the network. And then whoever does have it responds, and typically it's the actual MAC address of the machine that responds and goes back to this MAC address and it says, hey, this belongs to this thing, right? And so if we went to address resolution protocol and then drop that down, it shows you ARP request equals 1, sender MAC address, sender IP, target MAC address was unknown, and the target IP came back as such. Then you have the ARP reply, which is the next line right here. And so if we look at that, it actually fills in everything, right? So this one it had the target MAC address missing because it didn't know. And then this one actually responds from the MAC address of the target as well as the IP address of the target, and it goes back to the source. So a suspicious situation means having 2 different ARP responses conflict for a particular IP address. In that case, WireShark's expert info tab warns the analyst. However, it only shows the second occurrence of the duplicate value to highlight the conflict. Therefore, identifying the malicious packet from legitimate one is the analyst challenge. A possible IP spoofing case is shown in the situation below. So it sends from a source MAC to a destination MAC, says who has this IP, tell this IP. And a destination MAC responds to source MAC and it says this one is at this, but then exactly the same response. So it says this one is at this. So now it's saying that that IP address is at 2 different MAC addresses. And so when you try to do that, that probably means that there's something being detected or there's something malicious happening. And so this is highlighting the third item here, and it says duplicate IP address detected for this at this MAC address. It's also in use by that MAC address, and now we have a little bit of an issue here, right? Knowing the network architecture and inspecting the traffic for a specific time frame can help detect the anomaly. As an analyst, you should take notes of your findings before going further. This will help you be organized and make it easier to correlate the further findings. Look at the given picture. There is a conflict. The MAC address that ends with B4 crafted an ARP request with the 125 IP address, then claimed to have the 11 IP address. So if we look at this one more time, right here, it says that the the MAC address, let's go back up here actually. So we see it in the first image where it's just the two results where it says this is the MAC address ending in B4. So if you look at that packet, that's the destination MAC, right? So right here, that would be the target, which being the destination. So the destination MAC is actually at 125 right here. But then in the spoof right here, the destination MAC responding as the source is saying that it's actually coming from 11, right? And that's what's going on here, is that the actual response right here was that the B4 MAC is at 125. So if it's going to respond as anything, it should be responding as 125. But then right here, the B4 MAC being the source right here is responding or is sending something out as 11. So it's sketchy, right? And this is a more articulate version of what I just said. So it says the possible IP address. The detection note is one IP address announced from MAC address. And so the MAC address was B4 with 125. And then possible ARP spoofing attempt is that two MAC addresses claimed the same IP address, which is 11. The 11 IP address is a possible gateway address because it ends as 11. Usually they don't start at 1, they would start at 2. If it was a real IP address, it doesn't start at 1 typically because 1 is the first IP address in a subnet, and so that would be most likely the gateway, meaning the router, right? So MAC number 1 with F4 and then MAC number 2 with B4 are both claiming to be the router, the gateway, which doesn't seem right. And then you have possible ARP flooding attempt. The MAC address that ends with B4 claims to have a different new IP address. So at first it said, this is me, but now it's saying, no, this is me. I'm actually the gateway. And now we're going to look at the ARP flood PCAP. So previously we were looking at the ARP spoof and then the regular ARP. So these are three different PCAP files, right? So this is ARP PCAP, and then this is the ARP spoof PCAP, and now we're looking at the ARP flood PCAP. And the source MAC is B4, it's being broadcasted, then F4 responds to B4, and then B4 again broadcast 1,000,000 times. And the question is, who has, 11, so that's the first one, who has 11 till 125? And then 11 responds and it says, I'm at this MAC address. And then the following ones is asking, look, it's asking about all of these different IP addresses and it's saying tell 125. So pretending to be this thing again, right? So this one, this B4, which is actually at 125, asked once. And then the following were all being asked again to say, hey, tell me who all these other people belong to. And as the name implies, it's a flood of requests. There's a bunch of ARP requests saying, who is this, who's this, who's this, so on and so forth. So the notes in this particular situation are, you have a possible IP address match. One IP address announced from MAC address, same thing, B4 at 125. Possible ARP spoofing. So two MAC addresses claimed the same IP at 11. And 11 is a possible gateway, as we established. So MAC 1, which was F4, and then MAC 2, which was B4, both claimed that, yeah, I'm the gateway. And obviously, as we've already established, B4 is not 11, it's 125. So the spoofing attempt is what we saw where B4 tried to be 11 or pretended to be 11. And then the flood is now B4 crafted a bunch of ARP requests saying that, hey, who are all of the people inside this subnet right here? And that's essentially what I just said, but we are going to, we went over it again just so you get twice the information. It reaffirmed what I said basically. So up to this point, it's evident that MAC address that ends with B4 owns 125 and crafted suspicious ARP requests against a range of IP addresses, and it also claimed to have the possible gateway address as well. So let's focus on other protocols and spot the reflection of this anomaly in the following sections. So now we're looking at IP addresses instead of MAC addresses, and we're looking at HTTP protocols instead of ARP requests. And 112 is asking 249.3, get this page, and then 249.3 responds, continuation. 112, hey, get style, and also get images logo, and then 249.3 responds with continuation. And so it looks like they're trying to enumerate the website, basically. They're trying to get all of these different pages. Maybe they're trying to enumerate, but that's what they're getting. They're getting a bunch of information about the website, about their style sheet, as well as the logo and the login. So the login page, right? The login page is one of those pages that it's like, oh, somebody's trying to log in. They're trying to brute force. There is HTTP traffic and everything looks normal at the IP level. So there is no linked information with our previous finding. So let's add the MAC address as a column in the packet list to reveal the communication behind the addresses. So now, looking at the same communication, we just added the MAC address, source and destination. And so 112 came from A8 and it's going to B4. And then B4, which is supposedly this guy right here, supposedly, B4, or excuse me, F4, sorry, F4 responds at 249.3, remember, 249.3 is now pretending to be B4. 249.3 actually F4 responds to 112, and then the destination is also B4. And then 112 at A8, all these guys are responding, and the destination is B4. 112 again responding, destination is B4. So B4 is receiving all of this information, right? It's the one, no matter what the IP address is, the destination address for the MAC is the same, meaning everything is being sent to the same person, whoever the possible man in the middle is. So now we've noticed one more anomaly here. The address that ends with B4 is the destination of all of the HTTP packets. It's evident that there is a man in the middle attack, and the attacker is the host with the MAC address that ends with B4. All traffic linked to 112 IP addresses is forwarded to the malicious host. So let's summarize the findings. So IP to MAC matches 3 IPs to the MAC. And so 3 IPs matched. So B4 is 125, F4 is 11, A8 is 112. The attacker created noise with ARP packets. So B4 being at 125, the gateway address is F4 at 11, and the victim, which is F4 at 112, right? The attacker sniffed all the traffic of the victim, which is actually this guy at this address, and caught everything and forwarded it to that address, 125. So this is actually kind of complicated. It's a man in the middle attack, so we got to be a little bit aware. So detecting these bits of and pieces of information in a big capture file is challenging. However, in real life cases, you will not have tailored data ready for investigation. Therefore, you need to have the analysis mindset, the analyst mindset, knowledge and tools to filter and detect the anomalies. In traffic analysis, there are always alternative solutions available. The solution type and the approach depend on the analyst's knowledge and skill level and the available data sources. Detecting suspicious activities in chunked files is easy and a great way to learn how to focus on the details. Now use the exercises to put the skills to practice against a single capture file, which is going to be the ARP exercise PCAP. So previously we were in Nmap, now we're going to go to ARP, and then we're going to answer these questions. What is the number of ARP requests crafted? What is the number of HTTP packets received by the attacker? What is the number of sniffed username and password entries? What is the password of client 96? And what is the comment provided by client 354? Let's try to find all this stuff. Okay, we have now opened our exercise PCAP file, and the filter that we're looking for here is trying to find the stuff that has to do with the attacker, right? So the 000 is the no filter, or non-existent, and then the attacker MAC address that we've established was B4, and the question is the question is, what is the ARP number of requests crafted by the attacker? Let me just pull this to the side a little bit. So it says, what is the ARP number of requests? What is the number of ARP requests crafted by the attacker? So we're looking for the attacker because they told us that this is basically the MAC address of the attacker. So we're going to search for both of those filters, and we're going to press this, and then we're going to come down here, and it says out of the 2866, there's 284 that are displayed. So let's see if that is the answer, 284. Okay, and that is the answer. So now the next question is, what is the number of HTTP packets received by the attacker? All right, so this is the filter that I ended up with, which is the Ethernet destination equals the attacker's MAC and HTTP. Previously, I tried the ARP destination hardware address, which was the one of the original queries that we found, and that didn't bring anything, or a hardware MAC, excuse me. So arp.dst.hw_MAC didn't bring up anything, so ended up going with eth.dst, so Ethernet destination equals the MAC address and then the HTTP protocol. And so now we have 90 as our potential answer. So let's see if that's actually the right answer. And it is. Great. So now we can move on to the next question, which is, what is the number of sniffed username and password entries? All right, based on the instructions of the hint, we are looking at the post request right here. So this is a post request, and when you click on it, under the HTML form URL encoded, there's two things right here. So for item uname equals test, and for item pass equals test. So, or form item, excuse me, uname and pass. So your username and password, these are the actual keys for the form, and then they obviously submit a test. So this is something that we're looking for, and the key itself is called pass, and right here the key itself is called uname. So we can probably filter by the key inside of the URL encoded form. So that's probably something that we can use to filter and try to see if we can find something. And in this situation, if we're trying to look for username and password, we could probably just search for password, or maybe even username. But let's try it. Let's try one and see what happens exactly. So the first part of this is going to be the same as before. That actually pulled up all of these HTTP requests for us, and we added the URL encoded form key. So URL encoded form dot key, because we're looking for a key, right? And the key is pass. And so let's press enter, and we have 6, I think, right? 6. So we have 6. And they all pretty much, insecure password, okay, super secret, premium soda, client not here, and Captain CISO. So these are the 4 different passwords that we got, and one of them being test, so that definitely seems like it's sketch as hell. Then there is the username test, THM test. And then there's the admin username with super secret, and there is client 468, and we got client 986, and tourist audit. So okay, and I know that we probably need to actually use one of these two. It's one of the clients that we need to find the password for. So let's first enter the number of requests, which is 6, and that should be good. Oops. All right, 6 is good. And so what is the password of client 986, which is this guy? It says client not here. Okay, let's try that. And that is all good. And lastly, it says, what is the comment provided by client 354? So it's this person, and so we're looking for a comment here. In the comment for this particular question, it was saying that, or in the hint, excuse me, it was saying that special characters are displaced in hex format. Make sure that you convert them to ASCII. Now, the issue that I was having was that I couldn't even find client 54 or 354, especially with the last query that we ran with the key for password and the key for uname. And there's another trick where you can filter through or search through packets, and it's under edit and find packet. So basically Control F really. And then on the side right here, you can do string, hex value, display filter, regular expression. And so I searched for a string inside the packet details, narrow and wide, and I looked for client 354, and a bunch of different things showed up. But the one that was immediately highlighted right down here actually had client 354 as the uname, or as the name. So that's the thing, right? So when I was searching for uname, those didn't show up. But when, I guess if I would have searched for name, it would have probably shown up something differently. And then name is client 354. And right here in the comment is nice work. So, and then submit, value, so on and so forth. So the form item, and this is what's kind of interesting about this, is that this doesn't need to be decoded or anything like that. It's not in hex format. It's literally plain text. So I'm just going to type in nice work, and that is actually the answer. So there we go. We got the answer for that. I guess kind of unfortunate that I wasn't able to find the way that it was meant to be found. It feels like I maybe cheated, but I mean, if you can do something easier rather than having to decode some hex code, maybe that's even better, you know? But yeah, we got the answers. So we got all of the answers for this particular task, and now we're going to move on to identifying hosts for DHCP, NetBIOS, and Kerberos. So let's try to see what we can find there. When investigating a compromise or malware infection activity, a security analyst should know how to identify the hosts on the network apart from IP to MAC address match. One of the best methods is identifying the hosts and users on the network to decide the investigation starting point and list the hosts and users associated. Usually, enterprise networks use a predefined pattern to name users and hosts. While this makes knowing and following the inventory easier, it has a good and bad sides. The good side is that it will be easy to identify a user or host by looking at the name. The bad side is it's easy to clone that pattern and live in the network for adversaries. There are multiple solutions to avoid these kind of activities, but for a security analyst, it is still essential to have host and user identification skills. So, what can be found in host and user identification is dynamic host configuration protocol, NetBIOS, and Kerberos. And I'm guessing that these are the specific acronyms that we're going to be searching for. So DHCP analysis is for managing IP addresses automatically and requires communication parameters. The global search would be DHCP or boot P, and then if we're searching for DHCP request packets, it would be option 3. If we're looking for ACK packets, it's option 5. If you're looking for NAC packets, it's option 6. And due to the nature of the protocol, only option 53, request type, has predefined static values. You should filter the packet type first, and then you can filter the rest of the options by applying as column or use the advanced filters like contains and matches. So we would filter for these first, and then based on the results we can kind of apply the column as a filter or use something like contains or matches. DHCP request options for grabbing low-hanging fruits. So you have option 12, which is the host name. So the host name contains the keyword. The option 50 is the requested IP address. 51 is IP lease time, and 61 is the client MAC address. Then you have DHCP ACK options for grabbing the low-hanging fruits, which is the domain name. So option domain name contains keyword, and then 51 would be assigned IP lease time. And then you have NAC options for low-hanging fruit, which is option 56, which is the message. It's either rejection details and the reason. As the message could be unique according to the case situation, it's suggested to read the message instead of filtering it. Thus, the analyst could create a more reliable hypothesis result by understanding the event circumstances. And so we are looking at a particular packet here. So I guess a list of packets, but it says frame 2245, which isn't in our little screenshot at the top right here. But in frame 2245, option hostname librarian PC, right? So we found that. Then you have the NetBIOS analysis, which the global search would be NBNS. And then you can query details, which is NB name contains the keyword. Query details could contain name, time to live, which is TTL, and IP address details. So NBNS name contains that keyword, so on and so forth. And so if you just search for NBNS, name query for Xerox, for conveyancing, so on and so forth. And then for this particular packet, the query is the name, is the convex, Xerox, whatever, workstation redirector, right? Then you have Kerberos analysis, which is a security, specifically it's security for Microsoft for user authentication and accessing systems and servers and stuff like that. So there's the CNAME string, so looking for the username. The global search is Kerberos. CNAME string would be Kerberos. CNAME contains this word. Then it says some packets could provide hostname information in this field. To avoid this confusion, filter this, because that could be the host name instead of the user name. And the values that ending with $ would be host names, and then the ones without it are usernames. So if you want a host name, you would say this and not, so that's the exclamation mark. It says not this, meaning there's no $ in it, so that we can try to find usernames, for example, instead of host names and usernames. Kerberos, for grabbing the low-hanging fruits, we have PVNO, protocol version. Kerberos PVNO equals 5. Real M, which is the domain name for generated ticket, contains .org. SNAME, the service name, and domain name for the generated ticket. SNAME string is KerberTG. Addresses, so a client address in NetBIOS. Address information is only available in request packets. And so if we just do a Kerberos search, it'll bring up this information. And under Kerberos, the CNAME, you would see that the CNAME string is U1. So user1 would be that CNAME for that user under Kerberos. And this is on this packet right here, right? So now detecting suspicious activities in chunked files is easy and a great way to learn how to focus on the details. So we're going to now do this. So we're going to go into the exercise files, NetBIOS Kerberos DHCP, and then we're going to open up the PCAP, and we're going to answer this. So what is the MAC address of the host Galaxy A30? And then how many NetBIOS registration requests does LiveJam workstation have? And which host requested the IP address 172 ending with 85? And use another PCAP file, the Kerberos PCAP file. What is the IP address of the user U5? And we're going to do it in defanged format, which basically means we're going to put brackets, square brackets around the dots to make it not clickable. And what is the host name of the available host in the Kerberos packets? So these are the questions that we're going to answer. And so we're going to go here, we're going to close this one, and we're going to open up our next, which is going to be inside the DHCP NetBIOS. And the first one is the DHCP NetBIOS. And in here, we're going to search for the first set of questions. So it says, what is the MAC address of the host Galaxy A30? So we would search for that by going to DHCP option hostnet contains Galaxy. Let's do that. Let's see what that brings. It brings us 3 options here. And so what we want to do is we want to find the MAC address of this thing. And it could be under the Ethernet section right here. And so we have the source MAC address, which is basically a bunch of blanks in this particular case. And it's going to a bunch of, I'm sorry, that's the IP address. My apologies. That's the IP address. So it's looking for the MAC address of the host Galaxy. So it could be any of these really. So let's see which one we can actually find. Since we are doing DHCP, it might be better to actually search under the dynamic host configuration protocol section. And under here, if we scroll down a little bit, there's going to be something called the option for client identifier. And if we open that up, it would give us the client MAC address. And let me see if I can copy this value. Let's see, copy value, and let's see if that'll actually work if we paste it in here. Yeah, it pastes exactly the MAC address. Unfortunately, that is not the correct answer. So let's see if we can find something else that might be useful. The third packet here has a different client MAC address. So we're going to copy this particular value, and hopefully that will be the right MAC address. And that is. So it wasn't the first 2 right here. It was the third one that actually has the IP addresses populated as well. So, okay, so we got that one. The next one is, how many NetBIOS registration requests does LiveLjam have? And so we're going to search for the NetBIOS flag code, flag opcode, as well as trying to say contains LiveLjam, I'm guessing. So let's see what we can find or what kind of filter we can come up with. For this filter, I used what was inside the hint for the question, which is this specific query right here. So NBNS flags opcode equals 5. And then we added and what was already in the exercise, NBNS name contains the name. So LiveLjam. Let's try to see what happens here. And so we have how many results down here? Let's see. It says displayed 16 results. So let's see if that's actually the answer. And that is the answer. Great. So the next one, which host requested the IP address of 172 ending with 85? Let's see what query that we can come up to find that with. Okay, so searching for dhcp.option. And I'm just scrolling down. There's something down here that says requested IP address. So I wonder if that actually works. And then from here, I'm going to, I guess, type the IP address itself and see if that ends up helping us in any way. For this one, it was a combination of a few things. So I didn't actually put the IP address right here. I just pressed enter right here. And then under the filter right here, so Control F or Command F, depending on what system you're on, brings this up. And then I put the IP address inside here, searching for a string through the packet details, and I clicked find, and it took me immediately to that packet, which is actually frame 72529. And then from this one, we just scroll down to the host name option under DHCP, and host name is Galaxy A12, and I just copied that, copied the value, and that was actually the answer. So we combined 2 strategies together. And now we're going to use the Kerberos PCAP file to answer the remaining 2 questions. For the first one, it says, what is the IP address of the user U5? And we're going to use the CNAME string search. So I'm going to just paste that in here and then change it to U5. We got all of these packets that showed up, and it could be one of these two essentially, because it's or well, there's also a third IP address that's here as well, and so it could be I'm sorry, there's literally only two of them, my bad. So between these two IP addresses, and so this particular thing, this would be the C name. So if you go through Kerberos and then you kind of just open these things up under C name, you just open that up. C name string is going to be U5. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish who the source, who the IP address is, and which I believe in this case it's the source IP. So 10.1.12.2 is going to be the one that I'm going to first try to defang. And a really easy way to defang things as we go through here is going to a place called CyberChef. And CyberChef is a great tool that does a lot of different things, and including defanging. So we put the input on the right side right here, which was 10.1.12.2. So we're going to do 10.1.12.2. And the output, as you see, is the same thing right here, right? But then you go in the filters here, and then you do URL defang. So there you go, defang URL, and you just drag that in here. And in real time, or well, not in real time, I guess. Oh, my bad, not defang URL. It needs to be defang IP. So defang IP addresses. There you go. Defang IP addresses. You drop that in here, and immediately it does it for you right this. So we're going to copy this and see if this is the answer. And that is the answer. So we defanged the IP address by using CyberChef. And that was that answer. And now it says, what is the host name of the available host in the Kerberos packets? So we're going to go down here and we're going to look for the host name. Okay, what we know about host names is that they end with a $sign, right? And so if we do a global search for Kerberos and then go to the CNAME string piece right here, and what we want to do is we want to change or apply this as a column, right? So if we just right click on it, we can do apply as column, and it'll show you all of the CNAMEs. And then you see that there's one that literally has a $sign, I think out of all of them. There's one that has a $sign. So XP1 $sign more likely is going to be our host name. So XP1 $sign, and that is indeed the host name. So just like that, we got our answers for this section right here. I'm not going to refresh it. I just want you to take my word for it that these were right. And now we're going to move into, I guess I did refresh it just because I'm freaking annoying like that. But now we're going to move into the next section, which is tunneling traffic. So DNS and ICMP traffic, we're going to tunnel traffic. Tunneling traffic is also known as port forwarding, transferring the data resources in a secure method to network segments and zones. It can be used for internet to private networks and private networks to internet flow direction. There's an encapsulation process to hide the data so the transfer data appear natural for the case, but it contains private data packets and transfers them to the final destination securely. Tunneling provides anonymity and traffic security. Therefore, it is highly used by enterprise networks. However, as it gives a significant level of data encryption, attackers use tunneling to bypass security perimeters using the standard and trusted protocols used in everyday traffic like ICMP and DNS. Therefore, for a security analyst, it is crucial to have the ability to spot ICMP and DNS anomalies. ICMP analysis. ICMP is designed for diagnosing and reporting network communication issues. It is highly used in error reporting and testing as it is a trusted network layer. Sometimes it is used for denial of service attacks, so a ping attack. There's something called a Smurf attack. That is a version of ICMP DOS attack. Adversaries use it in data exfiltration and C2 tunneling activities. ICMP analysis in a nutshell. Tunneling attacks are anomalies appearing or starting after a malware execution or vulnerability exploitation. As the packets transfer an additional data payload, adversaries use this section to exfiltrate data and establish a C2 connection, command and control. It could be TCP, HTTP, or SSH data. As the ICMP protocols provide a great opportunity to carry extra data, it also has advantages. Most enterprise networks block custom packets or require administrative privileges to create custom packets. A large volume of ICMP traffic or anomalous packet size are indicators of ICMP tunneling. Still, the adversaries could create custom packets that match the regular packet size of 64 bytes, so it is cumbersome to detect these tunneling activities. However, a security analyst should know the normal and abnormal to spot the possible anomaly and escalate it for further analysis. The global search is ICMP, and there's packet length, so data length is greater than 64, and ICMP. There's ICMP destination addresses, encapsulated protocol signs in the payload. So this particular screenshot is data length greater than 64 and ICMP, and it shows you all these things. And there's a ping, request reply, and it goes back and forth between these two IPs. So it seems like it possibly might be a DOS attack. And then when you click on one of them, which is the request, which is what's coming in to whatever the system is that's being pinged, that data is 1033 bytes, and that seems to be a little bit longer than the standard, right? What was the standard? 64 bytes. So that's the regular byte. So this clearly is much larger than the average packet. DNS analysis. In a nutshell, DNS, the domain name service to translate, convert IPs to names, or back and forth, right? It's known as a phone book of the internet, so on and so forth. Similar to ICMP tunnels, DNS attacks are anomalies appearing starting after a malware execution or vulnerability exploitation. Adversary creates or already has created a domain address and configures it to a C2 channel. The malware or the command executed after the exploitation sends DNS queries to the C2 server. However, these queries are longer than the default queries and crafted for subdomain addresses. Unfortunately, these subdomain addresses are not actual addresses. They are encoded commands as shown below. So encodedcommands.maliciousdomain.com. When this query is routed to the C2 server, the server sends the actual malicious commands to the host. As the DNS queries are a natural part of the networking activity, these packets have the chance of not being detected by network perimeters. A security analyst should know how to investigate the packet lengths and start addresses to spot these anomalies. So global search is DNS, and there are various options for it. One of them would be the query length for low-hanging fruit, so contains DNS cat. Query length would be right here, so DNS query name length is greater than 15 and not MDNS. Anomalous and non-regular names in DNS addresses, long DNS addresses with encoded subdomain characters or subdomain addresses, known patterns like DNS cat and DNS2CP. Statistical analysis, like the anomalous volume of DNS requests for a particular target. Not MDNS disables local link device queries, so that's why they put that right here. So DNS contains DNS cat. Brings up a bunch of stuff. Then we go to domain name system, queries, and under DNS cat, you see this thing, and there's this long name. Detecting suspicious activities in chunked files is easy. Now let's try to look at some stuff. So we're going to go to the DNS ICMP file and answer two questions. Question 1, investigate the packets. Which protocol is used in ICMP tunneling? And we're most likely going to be looking for a size variable right here. And then we're going to look at the second DNS PCAP file, or excuse me, the first one is the ICMP PCAP, and then this one is the DNS PCAP. Investigate the anomalous packets. What is the suspicious domain address that receives anomalous DNS queries? Enter the address in defanged format. So what's the hint here? Remember, WireShark is not an IPS or IDS. A security analyst should know how to filter the packets and investigate the results manually. Filtering anomalous packets and investigating the packet details, including payload data, could help. And the next one is, after filtering the packets, focus on the payload data in the packets byte section. You might need to use the tool in full screen mode, so full screen the VM, which we've already done. So part one, we're going to go into the ICMP tunnel PCAP. All right, for this one, we had to go into full screen mode as the comment recommended, or the hint recommended. And to be able to find the payload, it's in this right section right here, this like the hex format of everything. And so if you click through things, you can kind of see certain things, and you'll see whatever on the right hand side. So if I click enough, there might be able to something that shows up. So right here, real quick, this thing right here, it says SSH right here. And then if we try to go further, maybe we can find something else. There's another one that mentions it. And then here's the full format. I think, yeah, this is it. So it also says right here. So this seems like the actual SSH was completed, because obviously it's a much larger payload. But then inside it, it shows you, CVC at Lysa something something. And then the, what is it, AES 128. So that might be the encryption of the password, or the algorithm of the password. SSH, cripe MD 160 at openssh.com. So the specific question, what it's asking is, what protocol is used in the tunneling? And they taught us at the very beginning of this room that it could be a variety of protocols, several, or at least several protocols. And it said it could be TCP, HTTP, or SSH data. And so it could be that the answer is actually SSH, and it is. The answer is SSH. So now what we're going to do is go into the DNS PCAP file. And from the DNS PCAP file, we're going to answer the second question. So let's load that up. Had to restart the machine real quick because it died on me. So let's start this search right here. Since we're looking for DNS, we could just type in DNS, and then we know that we're looking for a domain name. So we can go down here, and inside the queries, there's going to be something called name. And so we can right click on this, and then we could apply this as a column. So now it shows up here. And so if we kind of zoom this out a little bit, we can go through these things, and I'll just go full screen right here just to make it easy. And then you just see these super long domain names right here. Look at that. And it shows up a few times and a few more times. And then when you look at the domain itself, that looks pretty scary. So data exfil, so data exfiltration, basically. That does not sound like a good name. So what we need to do is we need to enter it as a defanged format. And for this, I don't really need to use CyberChef, but I guess I can. So dataexfil.com, just to kind of show you what that looks like. So if I just go here and just do dataexfil.com, right at the bottom, it just does it for you. And it's, I mean, that one's kind of easy because there's only one dot that you have to defang, so it's not that difficult to do. And then from there, we just go and we paste it inside our answer. Oh, it didn't even take my full.com because it didn't take the full thing. So there we go. Copy that and then paste that. And that should be the answer. And that is indeed the answer. Okay, very good. So now that we have done these two right here for DNS and ICMP, we can move on to the Cleartext protocol of FTP. Cleartext protocol is basically, as the name implies, we're investigating clear text. But when the time comes to investigate a big network trace for analysis and response, the game changes. So proper analysis is more than following the stream and reading the clear text data. For a security analyst, it's important to create statistics. Okay, so Cleartext, as the name implies, is that we're going to go through Cleartext and try to find that data. It sounds easy, but apparently it's not. And in this case, we're going to be analyzing FTP, which is designed to transfer files easily. And it focuses more on simplicity rather than security. So we can use this protocol in a lot of unsecured environments, or if it's used in unsecure environments, it could create a lot of security issues like man-in-the-middle, phishing, credential stealing, malware, data exfiltration, so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, if we do FTP, we can bring up all the FTP results. Then for grabbing the low-hanging fruits would be X1X series, X2X series, X3X series, information on request responses, connection, authentication. 200 means that it was successful, so keep that in mind. X1X for grabbing low-hanging. So FTP response code 211 would be system status, 212 is directory status, and 213 is file status. X2X, so it would be the 220 service ready, 227 entering passive mode, long passive mode, extended passive mode. Then we have X3, which is user login, user log out, valid username, invalid username or password, and no login, invalid password. So as they imply, so the X number X would be the second number. So everything is supposed to be 200. It falls under the 200 category, which means it was successful. So 210, 211, 12, 13 has to do with the system status or any kind of status. The 20s would have to do with services, it seems like, and the 30s have to do with the login and the username and password. And then you have the 430 and 530 that have a bad login. And then you have FTP commands for grabbing low-hanging fruit. So the user, the pass, CWD, current working directory, and list. So command user, command pass, command, or the argument password. And then you have brute force signals. So list failed login attempts, code 530. So show me all the ones that were invalid login. Code 530 and the response argument contains username. The request command is pass in it, and the request argument has password. So these types of things. And then if we just do a global search for FTP, you get a bunch of stuff, and then you see the 530 failed login, password required for admin, and then pass Merlin, and then login incorrect, password required for admin, pass Mercury, password required for admin, pass Mets. And so you see that if somebody's trying to log in for admin, clearly, and they keep having failed login requests or login responses, which means that they're brute forcing and they're trying a bunch of different passwords. So FTP, file transfer protocol, the incorrect login and response code, so on and so forth. It just shows it right here, and that's on the 4th packet, right? So now what we're going to do is go through the FTP PCAP, and we're going to answer these questions. How many incorrect login attempts are there? What is the size of the file accessed by the FTP account? And the adversary uploaded a document to the server. What is the file name? The adversary tried to assign special flags to change the executing permissions of the uploaded file. What is the command used by the adversary? And so let us go into our app right here, and then we're going to close this out, and we're going to go to the FTP. Okay, so the first one is how many failed login attempts were there? And so out of the 20,000 packets, down here it says that 3,800 of them are FTP, so it's going to be a little bit tough to try to find out what the passwords are. And I think the name is still here from the last thing that I did, so I could probably just remove this as a column. So let's see. Yeah, remove this column, there we go. And so now we have our request responses, and then as we saw that the response 530 means that it was an incorrect login. So if we do FTP response code, and then that equals to 530, that should give us a bunch of response 530s, and the total number down here is 737. So we're just going to go over here, and we're going to do 737. And that is the correct answer. Now the next one would be, what is the size of the file accessed by the FTP account? So we need to try to find the FTP account that was actually logged in. And so if we do 230, it will show you the successful login attempts. And in this situation, we only have one, and it's anonymous access granted. And let's see what we find under the FTP right here. There was nothing in this bottom section right here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to see what this conversation was. So we're going to go to follow and do the TCP stream following of this file. And it shows you a new window that has a bunch of things here. So it'll say, 230 or 220 user FTP, so on, and then 230, and then we got a login. And then if we just go down and then see what is the file that they're trying to access, you see that there's a resume document, so size resume document, and they try to access, it seems like, a document called resume. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to take the size of that document. It literally says it right under it. So 39,424 would be the size of this document. So let's see if that's the right answer. And it is. Great. So now they uploaded a document to the FTP server. So let's see what we can find as far as an upload is concerned. And it's just a few commands later, actually, that it says CWD uploads. So the current working directory uploads, and they're trying to upload the resume.doc. So I'm guessing that's what they were trying to upload. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, so that's it. And so resume.doc, and then at the very bottom, we also see, and resume was correct, we also see the last command that they put, and chmod is the modification of permissions that is done in, I believe this is Linux. It looks like a Linux environment. So chmod 777 means you want to give all types of permissions. So they can write, execute, read, so on and so forth. So the answer for that is probably chmod 777, and that is indeed correct. So we just had to find the successful login and then followed that TCP stream, and we were able to answer the rest of the questions for the FTP Cleartext section. So now what we're going to do, and I'll reload this in great fashion so that you can see that we actually got all the answers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to Cleartext analysis HTTP. So HTTP is for the web, and so it does anything that has to do with the web browser as well as any other service that runs under HTTP. So you could create a Python HTTP server and really anything else that would have to do with the transfer protocol of the internet, pretty much. You can do phishing attacks, you could do web attacks, data exfiltration, and of course C2 command and control traffic. And so you have HTTP, that could be it, or HTTP2, which is a revision of HTTP for better performance and security. It supports binary data transfer and request response multiplexing. And then you have the request method. So we have a get, post, there's also put, there's also delete. And so get means you want to get the information, post is you're trying to send information, and then you can also do put, which is updating, and deleting, as you're deleting. Request lists all requests, and so you do HTTP request, and then it will list everything, and then if you do dot, it probably shows you the rest of the options that are available after that. And then you have the response codes. So 200 is all good. 301 is it moved permanently to a new URL. 302 is it moved temporarily and it's moved to a new URL. 400 is a bad request. The server didn't get your request or understand. 402 is unauthorized. So URL needs authorization to log in or to get access to it, and it could be the login page or everything after the login page. 403 is forbidden, so there's no access, or at least no public access to that. 404, they couldn't find the URL. 405 is the method is not allowed, so user method is not suitable or it's blocked. 408 is that it timed out, so it took longer than the server wait time. 500 is an internal server error, and 503 is that the service is not available. And so you can just do response codes accordingly, and it will show you everything according to those responses. Then you have the parameters, which is the user agent, which is the browser that was used to make the request. The request URI is the points the request to the source of the server. So it's essentially, it could be admin URL, or it could just be a page, so the login page or a content page, so on and so forth. And then you have the full URI. So if you do full URI contains admin, it'll show you everything like that. So uniform source identifier, uniform resource identifier is what URI stands for. And then you have the parameters continued. And so you have server with the service name, host, the host name, connection, status, line-based text data, clear text data provided by the server, and HTML form URL. I just literally forgot how to speak for a second. HTML form URL encoded, and we already did a couple of searches trying to find the users and the passwords because they submitted it through a form. So this is what it looks like right here. So server contains Apache, host contains the keyword, host equals the keyword, connection equals keep alive, that's a connection status. Data text lines contains keyword, and we've already done the URL. So user agent analysis, it would be the SQL map, or it could be WFuzz, or it could be Nikto, it could also be Mozilla Firefox, it could be Google Chrome. So there's a lot of different stuff that you could try to find under the user agent. And so the notes here says different user agent information from the same host in a short time, non-standard and customer agent info, subtle spelling differences. So Mozilla is not the same as Mozilla or Mozilla. Audit tools info like Nmap, Nikto, WFuzz, and SQL map in the user agent field, and payload data in the user agent field. And so this is some examples. So if we look at the user agents, and there's a bunch of Mozilla, which seems to be fine, and then you have WFuzz, which is a fuzzing tool, and WFuzz right here, it also shows in the hexadecimal that there's a user agent WFuzz in there, and that's a no-no. Log4j is the name of a specific threat, or an attack, excuse me, that has happened before, and now there is documentation available on it in the vulnerability database, so on and so forth. So in this particular case, we're looking at the analysis for Log4j, and the research outcomes for grabbing new low-hanging fruits. The attack starts with a post request. So they made a post request, and then there are known clear text patterns like JNDI, LDAP, and exploit class. So IP contains JNDI, or IP contains exploit. Then the frame contains JNDI, or the frame contains exploit. And then you have the user agent contains $, which means that they're trying to access a host, or the user agent contains 2 equal signs, meaning they're trying to equal some kind of variable or some kind of command. And so right here, it shows it in the bottom right, where there's an equal sign in there. There's also a $, or 2 equal signs at the bottom. There's a $, at the top. And what else shows up that is not good? There is the JNDI that shows inside that, and that's also a no-no. So JNDI, LDAP, these are clear text patterns, and exploit class, all those things. So inside it definitely says JNDI at the beginning, but it also shows you the $, for the user agent, so on and so forth. So these are some examples, obviously not everything, and let's go see what we can find through these questions. So we have the desktop exercise PCAP's user agent PCAP, and then we have the HTTP PCAP, and we're going to try to find the answers for these questions. So let's jump into it. We're going to go into HTTP user agent PCAP. Okay, so the first question says, investigate the user agents. What is the number of anomalous user agent types? And so if we went to the hypertext transfer protocol and we turned user agent into a column, we should be able to see a bunch of things over here. And I'm going to try to kind of shrink this down a little bit to make it more visible. So we have, let's see what the hint also gives us. It says the answer is not the number of packets, it's the number of anomalous user agent types. You need to filter the user agent as a column and conduct a manual investigation to spot the anomalies. In addition to the obvious non-standard and modified user agent types, does Windows NT 6.4 exist? I'm guessing it doesn't. So if it doesn't, or we could even do this, right? We could even search for, does Windows NT 6.4 exist? Okay, so just a basic search for Windows NT versions gets us to their Wikipedia page. And scrolling down to the 6s, you can see that there's 6, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and then it jumps to 10. So there is no 6.4. So they kind of gave it to us by asking that question, but through verification, we see that there is no Windows NT 6.4. So now we have, what is it? We have 54 packets in total. And what we need to do is we need to find out how many of these things are bad. So WFuzz is definitely bad. We have SQL map, doesn't sound bad, or doesn't sound good, excuse me. So that would be 2. Microsoft WNS, does that show us the Windows NT? No, so that's not it. So that's fine. JND, that would be 3. Google Chrome is fine. Mozilla 5 is fine. And what else can we find in here? So we have the funky spelling of Mozilla, which is Mozilla right here. So that's 1. That's a bad one. And then inside some of these things, it seems to be that there is a questionable. So there's a Nmap scripting, which is also very questionable. There's Windows NT right here. So we see that inside this section right here. So the Mozilla part is fine, but the rest of it, it says Windows NT 6.4. So that's actually 1 that's wrong. The second one would be the one that has Nmap scripting inside it. That's wrong. So that's 2. Then you have WFuzz, which would end up being 3. And then we go down further and we find SQL map, which is 4. Then we find the JNDI, which would be 5. And then we have this misspelling of Mozilla, that's all the way down here, which would end up being 6. So I believe the answer is 6. So let's see if that's actually the answer. Yep, that is the answer. So now what is the packet with a subtle spelling difference in the user agent, which is this one right here? It's packet number 52 that has a little subtle spelling of Mozilla. So that's 52, and that's also correct. And so that's it for this one. So we're going to move into the packet capture file for HTTP PCAP right here. And we're going to open this sucker up. And it says locate the log4j attack starting phase. What is the packet number? So locate the one that starts with the phase. And so it's a post method. And so let's see if we can do a search for HTTP request post and see what we can do over there. So right at the top, there is something that looks pretty fishy already, JNDI LDAP, and it's a post request. And so what we can do is, just based on that assumption, we can try to see if number 444 seems to be right. And it is. 444 does seem to be right, because they did tell us. They said that to try to analyze for log4j, the first thing that you need to look for is the HTTP request method that is post. So it's a post method, and that's the very first thing that we did, and that's the very first thing that showed up. So now what we need to do is find the attack starting phase. So it says locate the attack starting phase and decode the base64 command. what is the IP address contacted by the adversary? Enter the IP address in defanged form. So we're going to locate the base64 command. And so if we click on this packet, there's going to be a bunch of stuff in the hexadecimal section right here. And if we even expand this, there's probably going to be an entire section of code under this. So I'm not going to open that up all the way. I'm just going to go inside this section down here. And then we're going to look at the user agent information. And inside there's going to be a base64 value. And so if we go ahead and decode base64, and there's a very simple version. So let me actually first just copy the value, and then what we're going to do is we're going to minimize WireShark real quick. We're going to open up terminal. Actually, I want to first open up, is there like Pluma? I think there's probably something in here called Pluma, which allows us to write. It's like the text editor inside of. Okay, so we pasted the value of this, the value of the user agent inside Pluma, which is the text editor that comes with this. And I'm going to remove the last bracket down here, and I'm going to remove everything basically up until the point where it says base64 right here. So we're going to delete this whole section, and it's going to leave us with the overall command right here. So that would be the thing that we're trying to decode. And now I'm going to use something called decode from the command line, and we're going to paste that into the command section and use base64 decoding, and it should work fine. So I believe it's base64, and then we do D for decode and paste our string, and hopefully this is actually the right string here. And okay, so it says there's nothing here. So the next step is going to be, we're going to take the same exact string, and we're going to use CyberChef to actually do this for us. So it's going to be defang URL, which is what we're going to be doing. How do I delete that? I guess that's fine. And then we're going to use from base64, which is a thing that goes from base64, and then it defangs the URL for us. So now I'm going to paste the information that we just copied, which is that thing, and voila, there's the command. So it says wget the HTTP or whatever 62 210, so on and so forth. So it's this portion right here that is the actual domain name that we're looking for, or the IP address, I think is what it's asking for. So let's go to our responses right here, and it says enter the address in defanged format, so we're going to put that, and correct, very good. So now we can refresh this just so you can see all of the answers on here, and that's where we just ended, is the Cleartext HTTP. So now we get to move on to encrypted protocol analysis, decrypting HTTPS. So the secure version of HTTP. So when investigating web traffic, we often run across encrypted traffic, which is HTTPS, which stands for secure. And there's a lot of stuff that it protects against, spoofing, sniffing, intercepting a cat, so on and so forth. It uses TLS to encrypt communication, and it's possible to decrypt the traffic using the encryption-decryption key pairs. This protocol provides a good level of security, and attackers and malicious websites also use HTTPS. So just because it's HTTPS doesn't mean it's a secure website. So we need to know how to use key files to decrypt the encrypted traffic and investigate the traffic activity. And the packets will appear in different colors as HTTP traffic is encrypted. Also, protocol and info details, actual URL address and data returned from the server will not be fully visible. The first image below shows the packets encrypted with TLS protocol. The second and third images demonstrate filtering packets without using a key log file. So the parameters is the request, so listing all the requests. TLS is global TLS search. TLS client request, clear TLS server response, and then simple service discovery protocol, so SSDP, and these are all just basic filters. SSDP is a network protocol that provides advertisement and discovery of network services. So nothing put inside the filter shows you just basically the different versions. So we have TCP TLS version 1.3, and then again 1.3. So now if we put HTTP in it, nothing shows up. HTTP2, nothing shows up. And that's kind of I think this is all one image. Yeah, this is all one image. So this is image 1. And then when we do so it's similar to the three-way handshake. The TLS protocol has a handshake process. The first two steps contain client hello and server hello. The given filters show the initial hello packets in a captured file. These filters are helpful to spot which IP addresses are involved in the handshake. So HTTP request, TLS handshake type 1, and not SSDP, and then type 2 and not SSDP. And so this one is type 1, where it's looking for the client hello, and then TLS 1.3, client hello. And if you click on one of the packets under the transport layer, it shows you the information. So record layer handshake protocol client hello, and handshake protocol client hello. So then if you do type 2, it'll show you server hello, and as you know, pretty much the same thing in the messages right here. And there is some extra stuff, so change cipher spec protocol and the spec message essentially. So that's the two different versions of using a TLS handshake kind of I think they called it a keylog is what they were referring to. The encryption keylog file is a text file that contains unique key pairs to decrypt the traffic session. These key pairs are automatically created per session when a connection is established with SSL TLS enabled web page. As these processes are accomplished in the browser, you need to configure your system and use a suitable browser. Chrome and Firefox support this to save these values as a keylog file. To do this, you will need to set up an environment variable and create the SSL keylog file, and the browser will dump the keys to this file as you browse the web. SSL TLS key pairs are created per session and the connection time, so it's important to dump the keys during the traffic capture, otherwise it's not possible to generate a suitable keylog to decrypt captured traffic. You can use the right-click or edit preferences protocols TLS to add or remove keylog files, and so this is what it looks like. If we do transport layer security, right click on this thing, it does protocols, preferences, and then master secret log file name. That's the file name, I guess. And then that goes into here, and then right here. So you do TLS. That's not the file name, my bad. So that's the option that opens this up for you. And then from here, you can browse for your keylog file. And then over here, we can also go to preferences, which is another version of this, I guess. Preferences, protocols, scroll all the way down, find TLS, and then go to master keylog file, and then upload it that way. And then so viewing the traffic with or without the keylog file. So this one, I guess, is without the keylog because it's blank. And then with the keylog, shows you everything. So HTTP2, and then when you click on it, you also get the hexadecimal stuff, and it shows you the out of the 760 packets, there's 115 displayed. Inside the encrypted application data, we see the number of frames, the decrypted TLS frames, and the decompressed header, and the number of bytes, and then of course we see all the hex information in here. So it literally makes something that is invisible to fully visible with full access to everything inside it. The above image shows that the traffic details are visible after the keylog. We get the frame, decrypted TLS, decompressed header, reassembled TCP, and reassembled SSL depending on the packet, these things could it could vary, but most likely at least these things are going to be in there, and then these might be after the fact. So we are now going to use the HTTPS exercise PCAP to answer these questions. What's the frame number of the client hello message to accounts.google? Decrypt the traffic with the keylog file that's included. What are the number of HTTP2 packets? And then go to frame 322. What is the authority header of the HTTP2 packet? Address, of course, in defang format. And then investigate the decrypted packets and find the flag. Hey, we're looking for a flag this time. So let's go. Let's close this out. Actually, you know what? I might need this. So I'm going to leave that open. We're just going to minimize this. We're going to close this thing. And we're going to close our terminal as well. And now we're going to go to the exercise PCAP HTTPS. And we're going to open up the PCAP. So the basic filter that we had from the task was to do HTTP request or TLS handshake 1, and then the not SSDP, and it would give us our TLS handshakes. I'm going to remove this column that was here before. And so as you can see, these are a bunch of client hello. And so in the task itself, there's a hint that says the protocol details pane will allow us to do TLS handshake protocol extension server name. So we need to find the protocol details page right here, TLS handshake protocol, and we need to find the extension server name. So we're going to come down here and find extension server name and server name indication. So let's see. And so that right here is the server name. So we're going to apply this as a column. So now we have that. And so what we're looking for is accounts.google.com. And so it says, what is the frame of the client hello to accounts.google.com? And it's this one right here. So frame number 16. And that is indeed the right answer. So now the next one is decrypt the traffic with the keylog file, and what are the number of packets that show up for HTTP2. So we're going to give you the version right here, HTTP2, press enter, nothing shows up. So now what we want to do is we want to go add our keylog file, which can be done from the, I think the edit menu, or yeah, the edit menu. We're going to go into preferences, and then from here we're going to go into the protocols. There we go, and open this here, and then we're going to go and find TLS under the protocols, and then we can browse and attach our keylog. And there's the keylog. We're going to attach it, click OK, and there we go. We got a bunch of packets. So if I minimize this just so I can zoom in for you, we now have, out of 1760, we have 119 displayed. So that is going to be the answer. So 119 is actually not the answer, because when you scroll through it, there are these 3 sneaky little packets that are TLS v1. So it would be, what is it, 115? It's either 115 or 112. So let's see if it's 150, because that also changed. It was kind of odd, because after I added it and then I pressed enter, it went from 119, it went down to 115, so that was kind of odd. So we'll try 115 first, but I feel like the TLS packets, oh no, it is 115. So I guess the TLS is also a version of HTTP2, so it's not 119, it's 115. And now we're going to go to frame 322, which is towards the top right here. And what we're looking for is, what is the authority of the header in the HTTP2 packet. So we're going to go here in frame 322. We're going to go to encrypted application data under TLS right here. And then we're going to click on decompressed header. And then now we want the authority of the packet. And it says enter the address in defined format. So I guess we're looking for a domain name, what it looks like right here. So that's authority. and it says safe browsing googleapis.com. Is that the full thing? Safe browsing dot googleapis.com. That's what it is. So if I go to defang URL right here and just turn this off, and we do safe browsing dot googleapis.com, we would have this thing down here, and we're going to copy that. Oh, whoops. Copy that. And that should be it, hopefully. And that is the answer. Yes. Okay, great. So investigate the encrypted packets and find the flag. What is the flag? So let's find encrypted packets. Or excuse me, decrypted, my bad. Investigate the decrypted packets and find the flag. The hint tells us that we can export objects after decrypting the traffic. So if we go to File right here, there's an Export Options button, our option, and then we do HTTP probably. And so it'll bring this thing for us, and there's two objects. There's a text plain, which I'm betting that's what it is. And I'm gonna save that thing. And we'll just save it onto the desktop. And let's see what's inside this thing. So there it is, and then we open it up. There we go. Hey, look at that. And they call us a flag master. Isn't that nice? That's a sweet thing to say. Even though I'm still barely understanding most of the stuff. But we're learning together. That's what's exciting about this. So, okay, that was the right answer for the last one right here. So let's refresh this, and then we're going to go to the bonuses now. So that's all done. As you see the check mark right there. So the hunt Cleartext credentials. So what we want to do is we want to find, I guess, some Cleartext credentials. So up to here, we discussed how to inspect packets for anomalies and stuff. As mentioned in the first room, it's not an ADS. WireShark is not an ADS, but it provides suggestions for cases under expert info. So sometimes anomalies replicate the legitimate traffic, so the detection becomes harder. For example, in a Cleartext credential hunting case, it is not easy to spot the multiple credential inputs and decide if there's a brute force attack or if it's a standard user who mistyped their credentials. As everything is presented at the packet level, it's hard to spot the multiple username password entries. The detection time will decrease when an analyst can view the credential entries as a list. WireShark has a feature to help analysts who do that, or who want to do that. Some dissectors, FTP, HTTP, IMAP, POP, and SMTP, are programmed to extract Cleartext passwords from the capture file. You can view the detected credentials using Tools and Credentials menu, and this feature works only after specific versions. So since it works only with particular protocols, it's suggested to have manual checks and not entirely rely on this. Once you use the feature, it will open a new window and provide detected credentials, and it will show the packet number, protocol, username, da-da-da-da-da. This window is clickable. Click on the packet number and it will select the packet containing the password, and clicking on the username will select the packet containing the username info, and so on and so forth. So now we're going to go into the bonus PCAP and try to find the packet number of the credentials using HTTP basic authorization, and then the packet number where empty password was submitted. Alright, so here's our bonus. We're going to go into tools, under credentials, and then we have these things right here. And so we want the one that specifically asked for which user? It says, what is the packet number of the credentials using HTTP basic authorization? So this is the file right here, and the packet number is 237. So 237, and that is correct. What is the packet number where empty password was submitted? And so that we have to do a little bit of searching and see where an empty password was submitted. Okay, so basically all we need to do is just click through the packet numbers. And so when you click on a packet number, if you're under the protocol itself, it'll show you under credentials, authorization credentials. So this one specifically because it was HTTP, but the other ones don't show it like that. So under FTP, it says, request command pass request argument academia, right? So if we just keep that open, as you click through them, it'll show you what all of the arguments are for that, and then there's one that doesn't have one. So the FTP at packet 170 is the one that does not have, yep, and that is indeed the answer. And this is actually really cool. I didn't know that this existed right here. It's a very useful tool, and it shows the passwords for all the other ones. Mozart, Mouse, Morley, Monica, so on and so forth. So closing that out, and we are going to move on to the very last one, which is actionable results. And this is going to be inside the bonus exercise PCAP. And so we're going to go under tools, and so it's for firewall ACL rules, and this is the secondary or the next tool that we can use, and it's right here. And this is also going to open up a new window for us that shows us what the ACL rules for access control list is, what it is. And so it says select packet number 99 and create a rule for IP firewall IPFW. What is the rule for denying the source IPv4 address? So we're going to go here. What is the rule for denying the source for IPv4 address? So first we got to go to packet 99. The source address is 10.121.70.151, and then we go to tools, firewall ACL rules, and then we want to deny that address. So it's IPv4 source address, and it appends input, yada yada yada. So there's no specific thing that denies it. Oh, right here. So deny. There we go. So we just leave deny open, and IPv4 source. I mean, it's still the same. So now it says, what is the actual rule? So we got to come up with the full rule, and we need to choose the create rules for IP firewall. That was the other thing. And so IPv4 source address, this is going to be the rule right here. So add deny IP from this to any out. And since we've already highlighted the packet, it actually shows us the full rule, which is actually really cool. So we are now going to just type that up. And would you believe it? It's actually the correct answer. So that full thing, add deny IP from 10.2.34.125, or I'm sorry, right here. Add deny IP from 10.121.70.151 to any out. That full string is going to be the rule. And the next one is select packet number 231 and create a firewall rule. What is the rule for allowing destination MAC address? So I'm going to close this real quick and go to that packet 231. Then I'm going to go to tools again, firewall ACL rules, and we're going to create an IPF or our IP firewall rule, excuse me. And then we want, what is it? We want allowing destination MAC address. So we'll get rid of the deny, and so allow destination MAC address. MAC destination address right here. So add allow MAC, so on and so forth, any in. And I want to see if I can copy. Can I choose one of these in particular? I can't choose one. I guess I have to manually type it, huh? That's pretty annoying. But okay, that is the rule though. And that is something that we can apply. So here we go. Add allow MAC any in. And that is also the right answer. This is actually very, very useful. That's kind of awesome, the fact that this exists here. And so refreshing this just so you can see that we actually got those answers correctly, and we did. So we have bonus actionable results, which is the one that we just did. Add deny, add allow. And then the one previous to that was the hunt clear text credentials, which was basically trying to find the packet number of the credentials for that, which we saw, and the one where it was an empty password, which we saw. So that is it for this room. This was a pretty hefty room. I think this is going to be a long video. I'm excited about this one. We can now jump into the conclusion of the room. Congratulations to both you and me for finishing this room. We covered how to use the WireShark to detect anomalies, investigate events, and at the packet level. Now we want to go into these other things, which is pretty gnarly. Carnage sounds so scary to me. But yeah, obviously I haven't done it. So it's going to be pretty cool to do this. There is that. And then the other two aren't clickable. There's a video on Network Miner, which I know that we've done already. It should be here. Yeah, we've done this video already. We've done all of the snort videos, so you can find that. We've done Zeek as well, and we've done Brim. So all of these that are here are actually available on the channel, and you're more than welcome to go and watch them at your leisure if you're using that room or if you're going to go through that software for yourself. So all of that is available for you through the channel as well. If you like this video or if you got any value from this video, I very much encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and even leave a comment, even if it's just to say hi or to say what's up. There's people who do that. There's somebody who commented first just so they can be the first one to comment. But anything that you do helps us with the algorithm on YouTube, and it will help the channel get more views and more reach and so on and so forth. So that would be how you could repay me. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not selling anything. All I'm doing is sharing information and kind of taking you along this path with me, this ethical hacker cybersecurity analyst path. And if you got any value from it, please do like, subscribe, turn on notification, and comment. Definitely comment. That helps out a lot. So that was it for this room. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite system and network attacker. I hope you got value from this video, and I hope you learned something. And I will definitely see you in the next one. So peace, love, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Talk to you later.